We're often told that we have to make a choice. Is the universe just cold, meaningless matter that science describes? Or is it a world full of meaning, but one you can only access through faith? Well, today, we're going to explore a third path. It's a pretty radical theory called analytical idealism, and it argues that reality itself is conscious. It challenges, well, just about everything we think we know about the universe and our place in it. For the longest time, we've been handed this really stark choice. On one side, you've got scientific materialism, right? A universe of physical laws, particles, and forces. And for all its incredible predictive power, it can feel, well, pretty cold and meaningless. Then, on the other side, you have traditional religion, which offers all that meaning, but it often asks us to accept it through dogma, which can really clash with our rational minds. And this conflict puts so many of us in a tough spot. You feel like you either have to abandon your reason or give up on that deep search for meaning. But what if that's a false choice? What if there's another option? Philosopher Bernardo Kastrup says there absolutely is, and he's proposing a third way that really seeks to honor both our intellect and our spirit. Okay, let's really get into this. Here's the roadmap for our journey today. First, we'll look at this war of worldviews. Then, we'll unpack the absolute core of analytical idealism, the idea that consciousness is fundamental. From there, we'll explore its concept of a single cosmic mind, see how that totally redefines the idea of God, and then finally, we'll bring it all home and look at what this means for us, for our lives, our deaths, and our connection to each other. So let's start with this war of worldviews. And this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate, right? This is a conflict that a lot of us feel personally. It pits our rational, evidence-based minds against that deep, innate search for purpose and meaning in our lives. And right into this gap steps analytical idealism. Now, it is so important to understand that this isn't being presented as just another belief system you have to take on faith. It's positioned as a rigorous, logically defended metaphysical framework. It's actually built from the ground up to try and heal this conflict by proposing a completely new foundation for reality itself. So, where does a radical new framework like this even begin? Well, its cornerstone, its absolute starting point, is a direct challenge to the default assumption of modern science, a worldview that we call physicalism. Physicalism is the idea that, let's be honest, pretty much all of us take for granted. It's the view that the universe is made of physical stuff, atoms, energy, fields, and that our consciousness, our entire inner world of thoughts and feelings and experiences, is just a complex byproduct of brain activity. But Kastrup argues that this view, as dominant as it is, faces an obstacle it simply cannot overcome. And this right here is that obstacle. It's famously known as the hard problem of consciousness. Think about it. How can objective, measurable things like neurons firing and chemicals moving around in your brain create the purely subjective, qualitative feeling of seeing the color red or feeling a pang of sadness? Physicalism has no real answer. It essentially asks us to believe in a kind of magic, a miracle, where quantities somehow, inexplicably, become qualities. So, analytical idealism comes along and offers a much simpler, more elegant solution. It just flips the entire assumption right on its head. What if reality isn't fundamentally physical? What if it's fundamentally mental? In this view, consciousness doesn't come from matter. Matter is just what consciousness looks like when viewed from an outside perspective. And just like that, the hard problem? It just dissolves. There's no leap to explain. Okay, but wait. If everything is mental, that raises a huge question, right? How does that explain you and me having separate individual minds? And how does it explain the solid, objective, physical world that we all seem to share? Well, the theory uses one incredibly powerful analogy to explain this. Here's the central idea. All of reality, every star, every planet, you, me, every thought, every feeling, is all happening within a single, universal, transpersonal consciousness. This is the bedrock of all existence, and the theory gives it a name, mind at large. Now, this is the core analogy, and it's brilliant. I want you to picture all of reality as one vast stream of consciousness. That's mind at large. Now, imagine that within this mind, certain thought currents can become self-contained, forming little whirlpools that separate themselves from the main flow. We are those whirlpools. We're dissociated alters, localized pockets of awareness. And here's the kicker. From inside our own little whirlpool, the rest of the stream, all the other thoughts and feelings of the cosmic mind, is what we perceive as the external, physical world. Now, if you start to wrap your head around this concept of a single, all-encompassing cosmic mind, it naturally leads to a radical reframing of another enormous idea, God. Because if reality is one mind, then the old notion of a separate creator God who exists outside of the universe, well, that changes completely. This little table here really makes the shift crystal clear. Just look at that first row, nature. A traditional God is transcendent, separate from creation. The idealist God is immanent. It is the very fabric of reality. So its role isn't an external creator. It is the stream of being itself. And that totally transforms our relationship to it. It's not some distant judge or savior. It is, in a very real sense, our own deepest self. So the big takeaway here is this. The universe isn't some finished product, like a machine built by a cosmic engineer. It's much more like a dynamic, unfolding dream. It's the ongoing stream of consciousness of the mind at large. And we aren't just characters in the stream. We are, in a very profound sense, co-dreamers. Now, I know this can all seem very abstract and philosophical, but the implications of this worldview are incredibly personal. So let's bring it all down to earth. What does this way of seeing things mean for how we live our lives, how we face death, and how we treat one another? There are really four huge takeaways that flow directly from this model. First, life has built-in intrinsic meaning. We're not some random cosmic accident. We are the universe experiencing itself. Second, death is not annihilation. It's not the end of consciousness, but a return to the source. Third, compassion isn't just a nice idea. It's the most logical response to the fact that we are all fundamentally connected. And finally, those profound mystical experiences that people have reported throughout history, they're not just brain glitches, they could be genuine glimpses into this deeper, unified reality. And this completely reframes that age-old quest for purpose. In a purely materialist world, we have to invent our own meaning from scratch. But here, meaning is intrinsic. Our purpose isn't some cosmic job we have to figure out and then complete. Our purpose is the very act of living, of feeling joy and sorrow, of learning and knowing. We are, in a way, the sense organs of the universe. This also transforms our understanding of death. Remember that whirlpool analogy? Our ego, our individual sense of self, is that whirlpool. Death is simply the moment that the boundary of the whirlpool dissolves, and the water that made it up just flows back into the main current. The individual pattern comes to an end, yes, but the consciousness that animated it continues, rejoining that great stream of mind at large. It's a homecoming, not an annihilation. And this is where we find a really powerful logical foundation for ethics. If the separation between you and me is at the deepest level an illusion, if we are all just different whirlpools in the same stream of consciousness, then harming another person is, in a very real, non-metaphorical sense, a form of self-harm. Empathy and the golden rule suddenly become logical consequences of the very nature of reality. So, to wrap this all up, analytical idealism presents this incredible challenge to our old ways of thinking. By grounding itself in logic and putting consciousness right at the very center of reality, it offers a framework that doesn't ask us to choose. It can account for all the data of science while also validating our deepest intuitions about meaning, connection, and the sacred nature of existence. It forges a path for the modern mind to walk in genuine spiritual wonder. And so, I'll leave you with this question, because it's a question that takes this whole discussion from abstract metaphysics and drops it right into our daily lives. If this worldview is even close to being true, if the line between self and other is not nearly as solid as we think, what does that demand of us? In this shared cosmic dream, what do we truly owe each other?